Well, good morning everyone. I've just had to check my watch, and I believe we're Thursday today. Groundhog Day. So here I am again. I've done my 6 minutes of walking. I've already been disturbed by a little one once, and we will see. Morning Paul. Morning Carlo. So first one this morning. So unless you guys have got questions as you're coming on, can you hear me? I hope you can. Wave, smile, let me know. Do all of those sort of things. Darren Holmes posted up last night. Thanks, Carlo. Posted up a dilemma about his multi-sport training. Now, when I first met Darren, he was a bloody good cyclist. I'm sure he still is a bloody good cyclist. Morning, Paul. But certainly over last summer, he was running lots and lots and lots. Morning, Rob. Morning, Matt. And Darren posed the question last night of how does he balance his multi-sport training? Morning, Martin. Let's try and schedule that phone call this afternoon if we can, Martin. If you're free after 2, drop me a message just while it's popped up. Drop me a WhatsApp and we can give you a call. Morning, Matt. So, multi-sport training. So, what Darren has commented on is that as he starts training for one discipline, the other one falls off. Well, first thing I'd say is surprise, surprise. And I really don't think it makes any difference whether you're multi-sport training or whether you're looking at a single sport. And one of the things that I try and do with the guys that I work with is try and get that balance going of what we actually need. Morning, Alex. So for a triathlete or a duathlete, I would get you in the lab and I would look at both bike and run so we can assess what strengths and fitnesses are from bike to run. And that's, I think, a crucial element is knowing where your strengths and where your weaknesses are coming from. However, we break that down even further. So there's quite a few of you popping in this morning who have already been tested in the past. And one of the main purposes of testing is to look at your strengths and weaknesses across the spectrum. And what we try and do is we try and look at your endurance level, look at your threshold level, look at your peak level, look at your recovery. So we've got that whole of that fitness spectrum across a single discipline. Now with a multi-sport, and obviously don't do any swim work, but certainly from a bike and a run perspective, we then try and balance off bike to run, and we try and get the balance of looking at both of those. And then again, for any of you who have been in with an assessment with me or have picked up one of the books, either the cycling or the running book, what you'll see is I use a very, very simple or a simplistic pyramid style approach to my training. And I think the focus has to be, and this sort of comes back to Darren's problem, if he focuses too much on the bike, his run performance drops off, or he focuses too much on the run, his bike performance drops off. I'd actually say, well, without assessing in the lab, I don't really know, but the chances are the area that's dropping off is probably too weak. So it's looking at strengths and weaknesses and looking at getting that balance right. As an example, use a cyclist, for instance. I would suggest to any cyclist, we need anywhere between 3 and 9 months of base work to really cement cardiovascular base fitness. Once we've got that cemented, then we can lift up and we can move towards threshold work. Now that threshold phase will depend on how long or what sort of races you're doing. So the duration of that threshold phase might be anything from as short as 4 weeks right up to 12 weeks long. Now, problem is, if you do that threshold phase for 12 weeks, by that point you're going to start dropping off your cardiovascular fitness unless it's really, really solid. So most people that have that threshold phase as maybe only being 6 to 8 weeks, again depending on their event. And then finally we'd have a peak phase, which might be anything from 2 weeks right up to 6 or 8 weeks, again depending on the nature of the event and how important cardiovascular endurance was. So we've got to get those phases right. And if the phases aren't right and you've not got enough cardiovascular performance, enough cardiovascular base work before we step up to the threshold work, then obviously you're going to lose the endurance base and the efficiency. And so if we're trying to balance off bike and run, as well as endurance, threshold and peak, we're in a balance. So Darren, and again, as I said with everyone else, I'm quite happy to chat to you on the phone about it, and I'm quite happy to have, free 20 to 30 minute consultations with everybody while I'm free at this time. But the suggestion would be is the discipline that's dropping off fitness or performance whilst you're focusing on the other discipline is perhaps not strong enough in the first place. So we really need to settle down and look at goals and aims and work out what those goals and aims are in order to maximise your performances. And we're in a really difficult time at the moment because most of us haven't got a clue of where our target races are going to be. A couple of people asked me yesterday, have I got any target races? What's my focus? Well, if I don't get a bloody big Christmas birthday present this year, because you all know I'm 50 now, I'll be very disappointed. But anyway, I'm 50 just before Christmas. And so realistically, my focus this year, I'm quite lucky, will probably be December, January time, and actually having a really strong cross-country season, and then trying to run some really quick 10Ks very, very early into 2021 when I'm just 50, and then potentially having a good track season off that base. So at the moment, most of my focus is using this sort of work to really build my endurance over the summer, get my endurance fitness up as possible, much as possible, reduce my body fat down, keep myself at a nice stable weight, so that come the winter, come September, October time, I'll be in pretty good endurance shape without doing mega volumes, that I can then step up and start doing some threshold work, so that when Billy turns up and runs cross country against me at Christmas time, which I think we've agreed, haven't we, Billy? He just popped on, I can kick his ass. I'm only joking. So the target there is that if I can have a good 6 months worth of endurance, and I've got double-headed purpose on that in a moment I'll tell you about, that will really give me a great volume, a great base, great body shape and structure to work from. But then I can step onto my threshold work, and then I can step onto some speed and power work. And again, although I'll probably be doing some multi-sport, and it was great that I heard from Mark Shaw at the Stables training camp yesterday that Mark looks after Dan Buster and Vitruvian triathlons. Dan Buster was meant to be 6th or 7th of June. Well, Dan Buster's now being rescheduled for the same day as Vitruvian in September, assuming that everything else is going normally. And that's still going to be a national champs, and it's still going to be a qualifier for Worlds. So my focus will be to go in and do that, but be a bit undercooked for it, and then still step up my performances. So at some point I'll need to bring in some cycling into my season. So it's all about putting everything out, having a plan, knowing what we're working towards. And as I say, it's difficult for a lot of you guys at the moment because realistically those event targets aren't there at the moment, and it's having that focus on an event. So I know Donna's online at the moment, or she was a minute ago. So it's like, Donna, I'm not sure if you're thinking about end of season stuff, if you're going to be doing one of the September, October marathons, and it's now looking about rescheduling and saying, well, where can I be going September, October, or even stuff like a shorter distance like Telford 10K, just before Christmas. We'd hope that by that stage things are going to be back on, events and races are going to be back on, and so do you make yourself a focus of, I want a blindingly fast 10K right at the end of the year. Now again, as I said yesterday, one of the values of taking that approach at the moment is, if you spend the next 2-3 months really working on endurance and just scrubbing off the speed a little bit, that's going to help you stay a little bit fitter, a little bit healthier. one of the worries I've always got is too much high intensity work, not enough recovery doesn't always, but it can essentially leave your immune function compromised and suppressed. So obviously if your immune function is compromised and suppressed, then if you do get this nasty lurgy, we're going to be in a pretty bad situation. And fortunately, or unfortunately I should say, and I won't name names, but I saw one of the triathlon coaches on a forum about 2 or 3 weeks ago go, oh, it's no worse than a cold. If you're fit and healthy, you'll get over this. This isn't an issue whatsoever. Well, there is evidence that people who get this coronavirus can actually end up with long-term lung problems. And so if your breathing capacity is reduced by that, you'll never ever return to the level that you're at. So you want to be as fit and as healthy with the strongest immune function you can possibly have. And by doing too much high intensity interval training, too much high intensity work at the moment could potentially leave you massively compromised. Just gonna, my camera's dropping a bit. So that's where we're at. Yeah, Paul, there are lots of cycling events on Zwift. Lots of the running events at the moment. I had one of my emails through, a regular email through this morning about running events, are going to virtual races. So you go and do your 5k or your half marathon, you know, wherever you are against the clock, and you post your time, and then the race organizer sends you your medal, and a lot more of the entry monies for those are going then towards good causes and charities. Hold on a minute, everyone. You can't, sorry? You can't get your pedalling bike. Right. Okay, well, we'll practice your pedalling bike. Right, okay, well, you can practice your pedalling bike.
I can't get out the door.
You can't get out the door. Right. Good morning, Richard. Hang on a second, everyone. Look, can you see? We're talking to everyone here. Can you wait for your pedalling bike for 10 minutes till I've finished? What about Frozen? I thought you were watching Frozen. No. Could you go and ask Sebi if he can help you? Good girl. Off you go. Say bye, everyone. Anyway, so might mean that I've only got 5 more minutes on here, guys. We'll see how we go on. Whilst I've stopped, I can feel I'm cooking. Fan's gone on. So as I was saying, Paul, yeah, there's loads of cycling events on Zwift, and a lot of the running events are actually just moving to virtual races. And maybe apart from maybe going and doing a 5 or a 10k time trial, and I know we've got your weekly 10-mile time trial in, and I've come down a little bit on the sort of intensity I'd normally be doing with you for this time of the year. I think we've got to be sensible in terms of not overloading and not doing too much high intensity, too much race work, in the hope that as the season kicks off, hopefully by July, August time, morning Paul, we can step up just before the season kicks off fully. So for now, I think it's more about sort of maintaining a bit of a tick over phase, giving you lots of recovery days, making sure that everything's comfortable and everything's good. So I'm just checking where my heart rate is. I'm still under 110, so all good. So it's just about keeping stuff nice and light, going through the motions, building the best endurance base that we can, looking after yourself, looking after your recovery. So alongside of that, it's then looking at good nutrition, both during and post-exercise. I pick up the pH, the sports salt people. Picked up on an email from those guys. Seems like one of my treadmill workouts. Yeah, children and animals and everything else coming to disturb you, Rich. Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Oh, here she comes again. So, one of the things that's worth looking at is looking at sweat rates, making sure you're drinking enough so that you're not getting yourself dehydrated. Look at your weight before you start exercising. I've said this to you guys before. Ideally, jump on the scales naked. What's wrong? Right, okay, well, I'll be out in a few minutes. Go and watch Frozen, please. Right, guys, well, it looks like my run this morning and your talky bit this morning is being disturbed by a 3-year-old. I'll finish this little piece off, and if it carries on, then I'll have to vanish. So, and I think we keep getting network issues as well. So, as I was saying, one of the things that's worthwhile checking, and I've said this loads of times before, I've done it on blog articles, you can do some running when I'm finished, yes. Is what we need to do is we need to get you on the scales before you start your training session. Stay away because you'll hurt yourself. Right, 30 seconds and we're there. Right, jump on the scales before you start your session. Ideally, jump on the scales naked. Get dressed before you train. You will get arrested. Go and do your training session. All your clothes off. Towel yourself dry as much as possible. Weigh yourself in terms of kilos. Any weight loss is sweat loss, majority of it. Yeah, we can get that in a minute when I'm finished. Woo! Yes, when I'm finished. Any weight loss you've lost in kilos is sweat loss. Every kilo you've lost is 1 litre of fluid that you've sweated. To rehydrate, you need to consume at least 1.5 to 2 litres per kilo that you've lost to rehydrate. So, worthwhile through training, and particularly if you're training indoors at the moment, or as it's warmer and outdoors, get a handle on what your sweat rates are, so that you can make sure you stay well hydrated. In addition to that, then, what we've got to look at is some good post-exercise nutrition. So, mind your fingers in the fan. Sorry guys, this is an interesting one this morning, isn't it? I can see we're going to have a problem today. Anyway, whoa! Did that hurt? Did that hurt you? Someone just tried to put their fingers in a big metal fan. Not sensible. Right guys, well, I think I better sign off before my child loses her fingers and I lose my patience. Morning came. You just caught the end of this today purely and simply because we're having children's interaction time. But anyway, I'll catch you all later. If any of you got any questions, want to have a catch up with me, please feel free to do so. Drop me a message and we can schedule a diary time. And great to see you all. Not quite sure if I'll try another half an hour later on today or it will be coming back tomorrow. Sanity returns for a day or two because Becky finishes on a long shift of days. She gets a day off on Saturday and then she's back in Sunday, Monday. So we'll try and work something so that I can keep feeding back to you. Or there's an option that I might set the bike up later on and sit out on the patio on the bike and do another half an hour while I'm on the bike later on, just to keep myself sane. So thanks guys, thanks for your time. Sorry I've got to duck off quite so early, but if there's any questions you want me to go through, anything of use, then I will do as soon as possible. But in the meantime, we have a little person that doesn't want to be on video but doesn't want me to be on the treadmill either. So mind your feet, darling, and I'll speak to you all later. Cheers guys, bye now.